Oreos, your favorite cream-filled chocolate cookie, now with gut health positive ingredients. Now, this might seem absurd, but what does the largest snacking CPG company, Mondelez, and a small startup that is focused on gut health have to do with the functional foods movement? So recently on a podcast, I was asked if I thought the functional foods movement was hitting a peak. And my honest answer was no. I thought it was just kind of in the early innings of the game. I thought we still had a lot of time before we saw functional foods getting to the level in which around the country would understand the term functional foods. And my reasoning was surrounding how I thought that big food and beverage, or just big CPG in general, was not fully invested in functional foods yet. Because of that, it was not at critical mass, the middle America, kind of all around outside of more of the coasts or progressive areas in the United States. We're still not really aware of functional foods, and it was going to take a large CPG firm to really cement it into culture of America. CPG firms today, I think all of them understand that healthier for you, better for you is not a fad. This is a trend that is growing. Consumers are looking for health and wellness in all different forms and functions throughout their day. And being that consumer packaged goods is intertwined in the American habits, it's natural that consumers are asking for those things to be in their products today. So if you're a large CPG portfolio and you want to get into functional foods, all of the aspects around healthier for you and better for you, you either have to create those brands, those products within the four walls of your business, which rarely happens today. A lot of R&D spend is not happening at these CPG portfolios. And then if they were to maybe highlight some of these ingredients or trends and move them into some of their legacy brands or legacy products, that becomes extremely risky. So a lot of times that doesn't happen as well, because it's not that these portfolios don't understand what's hot. They don't understand what is actually out there in terms of ingredients, different emerging food, beverage, nutraceutical, all those types of ingredients. They know that those are out there. The problem is they can't really implement them into their existing legacy products because it creates some issues with their core customers. These are billion-dollar brands that we're talking about usually. So for them to move them into one of those products, you have a very big amount of risk to potentially not that big of a reward. So usually what happens and what you see most today is that if a big CPG firm wants to get into some of these functional foods, some of this innovation space of emerging brands, they tend to look at some of their venture funds that they are starting to create now. Maybe they have an incubator that they help some of these young entrepreneurs get to the next level and some of their ideas, some of their bleeding edge ideas, and hopefully through that they can get some learning and they can implement that into maybe a larger investment down the line, purchasing that company or that technology to move it into their large CPG portfolio. What I talked about at the beginning is a investment that is definitely not the first, definitely won't be the last. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is that it did not get the type of publicity that I believe it should have. I think that maybe it was a little bit misunderstood, partly because it was just a very small investment, but I believe long term it could have lasting impressions on the functional foods movement and kind of getting that into critical mass, getting that to this point where people are consuming these products on a very regular basis, and it helps everybody kind of transition into this healthier for you and better for you lifestyle. So the investment that I'm talking about is Mondelez, that I mentioned earlier, the largest snacking CPG portfolio in the world. They have a venture fund called SnackFutures where they are starting to make investments. Just so happens the first investment that they made was Uplift Food. And Uplift Food is a very small company. When they made the investment last month, they only had one product. It was a product called Gut Happy Daily Uplifter. And this is a dietary supplement. It is a powder. It has probiotics, prebiotic fiber, It uses mushrooms, green banana powder, and a few other things that are in there. And basically, it's to be added to smoothies and different things like that to improve gut health. And because this company is so small, and though it was the first investment by the largest snacking CPG portfolio, it still kind of got under the radar. People weren't really aware of it. And I want to kind of explain just my thoughts around why I believe it could be extremely important to the movement. Also, just kind of where I think maybe this could potentially go with Mondelez. So here's how this particular investment helps functional foods. And this is kind of similar to the ones before that have been made by other kind of CPG portfolios. I'm going to highlight this one because of the reasons I said before about it flying under the radar. In addition to the obvious financial investment that SnackFutures, Mondelez's venture fund, is going to make to Uplift Food, they're going to also provide some help around marketing, distribution, some R&D, some sourcing, things that are going to just help the overall picture of Uplift Food. Their hopes are that this will help enhance the ability for Uplift Food to educate and inform consumers around gut health. Make it understandable, make it relatable, make it accessible, make it enjoyable, things that all functional foods, all kind of like intent-driven CPG needs. There's an education piece that goes along with it. Anytime when you are picking something up for an intent, there tends to be some exchange of information that needs to happen for that consumer to understand how to implement it correctly, how to implement it into their day-to-day life that's accessible. And the more education, the more ability you can do that in a digestible way, the better that product's success. So that is an obvious help that Mondelez can give to Uplift Food. And this can be said about all kinds of other investments. When you have the money behind it, and you have the expertise, you have resources, you have a bunch of things that happen with venture funding or incubators, you tend to then have the ability to have a bigger soapbox. You have the ability to not only have a bigger but a better soapbox, essentially, if you understand how to utilize those resources correctly. And then secondary, with talking about familiarity, the ability to create familiar, digestible information, but also function, form of the product. Right now you have a powder that needs to be added to a smoothie, which, I work a ton in caps, powders, pills, traditional forms of functional CPG, so I don't necessarily think that is bad. But if you move it into something that's more familiar, something that middle America, just people that maybe aren't aware of gut health at all, something that's more traditional of a food or something similar to what Mondelez offers in their portfolio, then it kind of opens up a lot of other doors for you. And the benefit of having the backing of a Mondelez is that you also have the distribution that comes with it and the know-how, the resources that can help you get into the spaces that you need to when you do have more of a functional food, like a convenience on-the-go product in a bar or a drink or whatever that is that you would need the traditional physical retail channels for. And this might seem that, obviously Mondelez is this value to Uplift Food. What is Uplift Food going to give value back to Mondelez? I think one, obviously if this hits, it does really well. There's the investment piece of it that they are going to get value from that. If it ever adds just meaningful revenue to the portfolio of Mondelez. But two, it provides a lot of data for Mondelez to check out some new emerging trends, some things that they are interested in. Through some of those tests, they can then decide if they can move this from kind of the least risky, most used part of getting into the emerging innovation side. This is the venture side, what I'm talking, and move it into more of a riskier section, which is utilizing these ingredients in some of their legacy brands or legacy products. And this is where things get really interesting. And this is why I wanted to talk about this particular investment, is that if these tests did prove positive for Uplift Food, there was a lot of movement, a lot of positivity around that. You have the ability then to move some of that innovation into a Oreos, into a Ritz Cracker, into a Wheat Thins, into a Tate's Bake Shop, or any other kind of products that could easily transform into kind of a better for you or healthier for you snack. Now, like I said, a lot of risk comes involved with the move like that. You tend to have fans that do not want to be healthier. They might not want to eat better. They want that as an indulgent snack. So you're not going to go obviously all in on that, but you can have elements of it within the product to help the consumer, especially if it doesn't cause any issues with taste or other elements that are kind of right in front of the face of a consumer. That's kind of thinking down the line, maybe by late 2020, if anything, but I don't know the speed at which SnackFutures is moving these small emerging brands through the system. They also are going to be kind of reimagining and reinvigorating some of the portfolio names that are already in Mondelez. So there might be a quick add-on to one of the brands that I didn't mention, one of the ones that are a little bit smaller. But Dirk van der Put, the new CEO of Mondelez, has been adamant that consumers are moving towards health and wellness. He full-heartedly believes that. He also is creating a organizational culture where Mondelez can move quick. They can also not fear trying new things, failing in a sense. So he wants to open up the innovation. He wants to open up the communication. He doesn't want all this bureaucracy that's happening in large CPG firms, why there's a lot of issues that are happening. So all of this kind of together just makes me think it's an interesting point to bring up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed learning about something that maybe you didn't know about, or maybe you didn't hear much about in the news. I believe this is going to happen more and more. And when they do, if anything does particularly interest me and what I believe could be very interesting to you, and you guys can utilize in a way through knowledge and kind of applying it into maybe some of the things you're building, I'll make sure that I highlight those things. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.